So when Anthony Barr joined the Dallas Cowboys, he gave a reasoning for why he did. And in this recent interview he did have, he talked about, hey, jersey number, generic stuff like that. He did mention Dan Quinn being one of the big reasons why he came to Dallas. And, aside from the team being one of the only teams interested in him, he did mention how he believed Dallas was a contender. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about the idea of the Dallas Cowboys being a contender in 2022, whether it be going through the roster itself, how I feel on that, and then the scope of the league to get a sense of, okay, are the Cowboys worthy of being labeled a contender? And I'm going to go over my rationale in a moment. Now, before we do that, if you could do me a favor and like the video, it doesn't take too long to do whatsoever, and it's greatly appreciated. It helps the video perform better in the algorithm. Next, if you could subscribe if you're new. Over 65% of you guys watching are not subscribed. So if you keep coming back, which a lot of you guys do, and you like the content, why don't you just subscribe so you don't miss out going forward and hit that notification bell? You'll get notified immediately when these videos get posted. So look, when people call teams contenders, pretenders, or whatever, it carries a lot of weight because some people take it really seriously. To me, I really don't acknowledge a team as a contender or pretender towards the late end of the season, depending on how they're playing. I did this with Dallas last year. Hey, listen, let's wait until we see how they do in November or December, and then that's when you get a sense if the team's real or not. And so I just don't like the labeling, regardless of what team it is. And I'm not trying to have a cop-out answer. It's a legitimate point, right? So let's take a look at the actual quote that Anthony Barr had. So he said the following: I want to be on a team I felt had a chance to win. I want an opportunity to play at a high level, and I'm excited to be here. I think Dallas is a contender. That's basically what he's trying to get at, right? Is that he believes that the Dallas Cowboys are a true contender in the NFC to make some noise, okay? Now, I think the first part is, how are the Cowboys positioned as a team? Like, going through the whole roster as it stands right now as quickly as possible. You got a top 10 quarterback. You got a running back room that's very talented as well, regardless of how you want to look at it. Yes, you have a talented running back room. Your wide receiving core is weak at the moment, but assuming these guys come back fully healthy with no issues and there's no setbacks, you have yourself a decent wide receiving core, especially if CeeDee Lamb develops into that superstar type of guy, and the other guys that you added, whether it be the free agents, the young guys, you name it. As long as they show up, you got something there. Tight end, I think you're set there. Your offensive line has a lot of question marks. However, if those questions are answered, then you're solid. I think that as the floor, the Cowboys have a decent offensive line. It's hard to say bad, because you have a left tackle who, when he's healthy, he's really good, and then you have a right guard who's arguably the best guard in football, and then it's really, you have question marks at right tackle, center, and left guard. And if these guys play even at the floor that they can be playing at, I think you're A-okay and good enough to get the job done. You go over to the defensive side of the ball, you have a lot of question marks at linebacker and the front line of the defense, and really it just comes down to, do these young guys actually perform well? And if they do, you got yourself a solid defense. And hey, Dan Quinn, after kind of putting things together, now is just adding more younger guys. So if things continue and Micah Parsons gets better, and the secondary of the Cowboys, which in my opinion is the best part of their defense, continues to improve, I think you got yourself a good defense that can definitely be top 10 as long as things pan out. The biggest thing that could bite the Dallas Cowboys in the ass is their special teams, particularly the kicking game. I've talked about why the Dallas Cowboys have a kicking problem. If you missed out on that video, please go check it out. And the main reasoning for that is because, look, Jonathan Garibay, he was hyped up. I really thought he had something to come in and be the guy, and I was wrong. Then you have Lirim, who's been solid, and he's been pulling away, but he hasn't been the greatest. And then outside of that, you're kind of just like, well, you need a kicker, and it feels like the Cowboys wouldn't, do anything to prepare themselves for this. They kind of just went on a whim, and they were like, you know what, let's just go with this. So if it were to me, right, if it were up to me how I would grade the Cowboys, I think that they are an above average team that can win you maybe 8 to 11 wins. And I think that that's a fair grading for them. Now, obviously record is one thing. It's a different thing of, okay, what kind of competition are they stacked up against? So let's take a look at the landscape, right? So the teams that you have in the NFC, you know, it's been weakened a little bit, but at the same time, you still have some familiar faces. To start things off, let's talk about the East, right? You know, the NFC East for me is a little bit better, or actually a better, not even a little bit better, than what happened last year, right? So I think that you're going to be dealing with a Philadelphia Eagles team that has a lot of solid, talented pieces. It's a matter of how they put them together, so they can be a thorn in your side. The Giants drafted well for their first two picks. We'll see how the new coaching staff puts things together, but they don't have the quarterback, so that's not really something to worry about. The Washington Commanders, they're figuring out their quarterback situation. They're trying to get healthy. As long as their quarterback plays well, I think they'll have a solid team as well. So I think the Cowboys have some competition in the East. Are the Cowboys still the team to beat? Yes, because you look at what they have. I think they have, with you having the best quarterback in the division, that says something, and also you having talented players is important. I'm not saying these other teams don't have talented players. It's just, listen, the Cowboys right now, until proven otherwise, are the best team in the NFC East. The Eagles have a lot to prove. Even I understand that you'd be, oh, Space Cowboy, you're saying the Cowboys have question marks. Yes, but they have certain aspects to the team that I think put them above the Eagles, because you have guys like Dak, Micah Parsons, Trevon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, those guys. Yes, while the Eagles do have a lot of other players added onto that team, it's a matter of how they merge together. And I've gone on record saying that I do think the Eagles will win 11 games along with the Cowboys. So there's that. Looking at the rest of the conference, you go to the North, okay? The NFC North, you have the Green Bay Packers, Vikings, Lions, and Bears. Of course, if you follow football, you know that. So for me, I'm not concerned about the Lions or the Bears and even the Vikings, for example, because I feel like these teams are in a state of rebuild, hard rebuild, or they're trying to retool the roster. Minnesota is a prime example of this, and the reasoning, look, you have a bunch of guys that they have there already that are good, but it feels as if they really need a little bit more life into that team. They got guys on offense that I think can carry the load, but they just have to get a little bit more. And you could say the same thing about the Cowboys. I've gone on record. I've said the Cowboys are in a soft rebuild, but I think that they are ahead of schedule with what they're trying to do as opposed to some of these other teams. Green Bay, in my opinion, they have the best quarterback in the league right now, given the statistics and stuff like that. And I think that that's important. And with them winning 13 games in the last 3 seasons, they're definitely one of those teams where it's like, okay, you got to keep an eye out. But they are weaker going into this year. So we will see if Green Bay continues their dominance or will they fall off a little bit. But Green Bay, a team to keep an eye on, as well as Minnesota, but I think Green Bay is one to highlight. You go to the South, okay, and you have the Falcons, the Panthers, the Saints, and the Buccaneers. Now, I believe wholeheartedly that the only team you really have to give a damn about in that division is the Buccaneers. The Saints are in a state of flux. They are trying to move into this post-Sean Payton era with the new quarterback, obviously Jameis being there, but point being is you have a new quarterback, you have a new coach, you have a lot of moving parts in that division. So if it were up to me, I would say that the only team the Cowboys really have to worry about would be Tampa Bay. And finally, you go out to the West, which is a stacked division nonetheless. And honestly, all the teams minus the Seahawks are teams you've got to keep an eye out on. The Cardinals, as of in the Cliff Kingsbury era of their franchise, have been like starting off hot and then just cooling off and disappointing. This has happened consistently, so if it were up to me, I'm not worried about Arizona, even though they did beat Dallas last year. I don't care what anybody says. They really had a chance to win that division. They let it, and they just fumbled at the goal line, basically. The Rams, yes, the defending Super Bowl champions, they kept their roster intact, more or less. They added key pieces. They, in my opinion, are the team to beat in the NFC. But again, we're not saying are the Dallas Cowboys the best team in the NFC. Are they amongst the contenders, as Anthony Barr pointed out? I would say that if it were up to me, the Rams are a better team than the Dallas Cowboys. Are the 49ers a better team than the Dallas Cowboys? No, I do not believe so. However, I think they are As of the moment, based off of the proof of the 49ers Cowboys game, I think that they have a good coach that makes up for the talent deficiencies with that roster. And then you have the Seahawks, who gives a damn about the Seahawks. So now that we went through every single NFC team that I believe you need to keep an eye out on if you're trying to say like the Cowboys are like this contender or whatever the hell, let's now go through the list once again and just kind of see like where I kind of put some of these teams. So to start things off, in my opinion, the teams to beat are the Rams and the Bucks in that particular order. I think those teams, with how they're constructed and what kind of rosters they have and coaching staffs, I think that they're going to be the teams to beat. That's number one. The next tier is they are the above average to good teams that I think that if things work out, they could be a contender, but they can possibly just, go awry if things go that way. That's where I put teams like the Dallas Cowboys, the Green Bay Packers, the Philadelphia Eagles, the 49ers, in not in that particular order, but in that echelon of team. Next, I have the teams where if things go right, they'll be good, but I have my concerns and doubts. Those are teams like the Cardinals, the Minnesota Vikings, for example, and I would say even Washington maybe, and maybe even the Saints. It's just I don't really value some of these teams because of where they're at, but it's just a matter of how things go on the football field that will change how we look at this. So I would say this. Is Anthony Barr wrong in saying that he thinks the Cowboys are a team that's a contender? Not really if you look at the scope of the league, but I'm not claiming they're a contender. I think that they're a team where if things come together, you'll be good. If not, you could not be you might not be in the playoffs, but I think that this team's fine. But what do you guys think about what Anthony Barr has to say? Do you think the Cowboys are a contender or not? You're not buying that. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and hit the notification bell. If you missed the last video, by all means, make sure to subscribe and click that link. All right, have a good one. Goodbye.